You know, honestly, I really want to say thank you for attending this weekend. Building our Libertarian Party, building the base, getting people together and seeing what common interests we have, what we're doing in Indiana. Instead of just trying to be that pure libertarian, where we still have that faction that wants to just keep it pure, I am that one coming in saying, you know, there's a lot of things that really play very strong in our world. Years ago, when I was not happy with the Democrats or the Republicans, and I started looking at the other parties, and I found the libertarian philosophy starting to talk, to really talk to me, and really make a lot of sense. When I realized that I have been a libertarian for 40 plus years and did not know it, I felt very good finding other people that had that same idea. You know, I mean, like I say, 20 years we've been running a mentoring program in the Juvenile Detention Center, juvenile and adult correctional facilities, empowering our young men and women, giving our community an alternative to the incarceration. Work. In Indiana, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars locking our population up, taking our freedoms away, and making a new industry with the incarceration rates. At the same time, we're eliminating the ability to really make a legal living out of the schools for so many young men and women that are not making it in education, and the industrial arts, home arts, music, life skills are gone. Of course we have a dropout rate that's outrageous. At the same time, the incarceration rate just grows. At the same time, our debt just grows. When we're locking as many people up as are in our military, but we spend more, there's a problem. $50,000 a year, on average, between $45,000 and $65,000 a year, depending on the services. My gosh, what could we do with each person, for $50,000 a year, better than locking them up? Those are the issues that I am using in Indiana to really bring people in. We're talking to a lot of people that are not in the Libertarian Party. One of the reasons why, in my brochure, we took a big space and we put the world's smallest political quiz in the brochure. It's because we want to show there are a lot more of us out there. We just don't know it. When I first took the test, I couldn't believe it. Where have they been all my life? Well, this is our year to bring us to light. This is our year. We were just standing there talking. Now, I really, honestly, I believe I am going to win governor. Let me go out there and be the first libertarian governor ever elected and show what a libertarian really can do. Bringing our world, I'm sorry?
Don't screw up.
You darn right I won't. Because it's not going to be about me. It has never been about me. It has always been about helping our community. I've had the tests in Indiana. Indiana has already tested me. I had the $1 million put in my hand, and I gave it back to the community before I really thought that anybody was watching.
Right.
Years ago, years ago, I wrote a book, and I told all my secrets. All my secrets. Alcohol, drugs, homeless, struggling, making bad choices, of course. Would I have done that if I thought I was going to be a politician? Heck no. Am I okay with having it out there now? Heck yes. Because, I mean, I'm real. I am a person just like every other one of us. I am no better and no worse than any one of us. I have not made all the right choices in my life, and I never will. But I stand up to the choices that I make that are wrong, and I fix them, and I work on them, and I own them. and I don't blame others. And I teach that. I want to be that governor that stands up and leads by example, that walks in paycheck to paycheck and serves my 4 years, maybe 8.
Amen.
And then comes back home, still paycheck to paycheck, because I'm going to work the day after I leave. The same way that I went to work the day after I was given $1 million. We go to work. You go to work. I will never be that multi-millionaire because I give too much away. I make sure that we take care of our family. I take care of my mama, my daughter, my world. And then we extend our family out to our community. I want to be that first governor that really does lead by example. That will show when we make a stance this year in our state, in Indiana, in our party, nationally, in the Libertarian Party, and step up and show, well, what are they doing in Indiana? There is another choice? Do we have libertarians in our state?
Are they
That is...
Are they a threat?
No, we're the answer.
Amen.
Being able to stand up and show that we are here, we're not going anywhere. Don't be discouraged. Really, do not be discouraged. I heard my wife talk about my first date with my wife 17, 18 years ago. And she was telling this reporter on our first date, Rupert was talking about the gentle revolution that he wanted to create and change our world from the inside out. Bring that pendulum back a little more to the center and show the empowerment of our world will make us stronger. The separation, the segregation, the socioeconomic segregation that is happening will destroy us because we're paying for it. Being able to stand up and say that. That's why I'm here in Pennsylvania. I want to build a Libertarian Party across the country. I really do. I've been pretty active over the last few years, and you haven't seen anything yet. I will be even more active as the campaign goes on. Let that first poll come out that actually has a 2% margin of error instead of a 5%, which is just a guess. Let that come out. Let us be able to create a objective poll and show. Even with no money, I am one of the front runners. I am I hope that I am the front runner. I know that my name recognition is more than either the Democrat or the Republican. I know that my history stands up better than either one of them. It's getting that word out. And in Indiana, I will be on the debates, on stage in the debates. You think those GOP debates were I'm hoping that so much happens in that first debate that we get some national coverage on the second and third. That's a little bit about me and a little bit why I'm running and a little bit why I'm here. We're building the Libertarian Party. We're showing more and more people every day. You don't feel like you fit? It's because the Libertarian Party, you haven't found the Libertarians yet. The Democrats and the Republicans, they have their place. I'm not sure exactly where it is now. But working together, we will get there. We will. I know there was a not as big of attendance this weekend. That's okay. We keep going out there and beating that drum and saying, the gentle revolution is coming. It is. We're going to turn every program upside down. The same way that we've taken the entitlement programs and turned them upside down and created empowerment out of them. We are going to take every administrative agency and walk in and say, we've always built from the top and cut from the bottom. How about we switch that? We are building from the bottom and cutting from the top. Being able to lead by example. Walking into the governor's office, into the mansion, into the administration, and by executive order, giving back 20% of my pay to the state, cutting my administration by 20%, and then turning around to the 300 other plus agencies out there and saying, if you can't figure out how 20% is coming out of your administration, I will. And if I come in, the whole program might go, and I start over with administration. Done. Being able to stand up. That's what we're going to do. So, we said we wanted to ask some questions. The food is coming out, and the food is here. Yes, sir.
Instead of sending that 20% back to the state, could you kick that over to the Libertarian Party?
Most definitely, I will be helping the Libertarian Party for the rest of my life. This is just my first run. This is just my first time. Now, I am not trying to be a career politician. I am trying to change the way our politics work.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
Where do you stand on the decriminalization of drug use and on the legalization of polygamy?
On drugs, the war on drugs, I think, is disgusting. The war on drugs, I watch the aftermath of it every day in my program. Creating career criminals out of people that are hurting themselves. If your world is so bad that you have to smoke a joint or drink alcohol to make your world better, I feel bad for you. That's how our younger generation is learning to deal with stress. They are. And they're not getting the help because it's a war on drugs, so they have to do it behind closed doors. They have to be secretive about it. Putting people in jail for hurting yourself is disgusting. Taking the ability away from them to make a legal living is criminal. And it then creates another little bank account that we have to keep funding $50,000 a year for the rest of their lives because they will never go back to work. The war on drugs has to stop. I'm not saying I want to legalize everything. I want to decriminalize it to the point where if you're doing drugs, dealing drugs, caught with drugs, you're going into a probationary period. You're going to get some drug and alcohol treatment until you get to the point where you can get a hold of your addictions. You're going to get some job training. Or if you're in a job, you're going to be encouraged to keep your job and pay for your help. The reason that our mentoring program has lasted for 20 years. When I first get these young men and women into my program, they are not even worth the $7 an hour I pay them, $7.25 an hour I pay them. So, and they struggle with working a 40-hour week, 30-hour week. So I'm offsetting some of their costs on their housing, on their employment, on their food, on their whatever, on their expenses. But I get them to the point that they can start paying their own way. I also have a hold of them enough that I show them when your world is okay, you don't have to cloud your mind every day with drugs or booze. Decriminalization of drugs is going to happen. The first thing that we do in Indiana is stand up and nullify the federal laws against hemp. We will start. Indiana has for years had hemp growing in the ditches because in the 40s, we were one of the largest producers in the United States of hemp. We clothed our military in hemp clothing. We were starting to switch our military diesel engines over to burning hemp methanol. After World War II, oil, fiber, timber, and cotton came in and said, you cannot do this. And we said, okay, we never made hemp illegal. We just said, now you've got to buy a tax stamp, and we never issued a tax stamp. Of course. So it eliminated it. Now we have these ditches growing in Indiana where we have state and local authorities that know where they grow. watch the kids and arrest them for picking the darn hemp, instead of letting them take it home and smoke it and get the headache and realize, no, don't smoke the stuff anymore. The war on drugs is a terrible war, and we need to stop it. Polygamy, on my watch, I don't see where the government has any issues on issuing marriage licenses or being involved in marriages at all. So, you know, yes, sir.
Mr. Rupert, as governor, what assistance from the federal government would you accept?
As little as possible.
Be specific, please.
I would like to take what I am proposing, honestly, is being able to, with the federal government that gives so much for the roads, so much for Medicare, Medicaid, different programs. Let's create something where instead of just giving us, you know, this big block of dollars and demanding that we do what you want with it. How about we cut that, you know, 20%, 30%, cut 30% off, cut 50% off, whatever. I want to deal with the government to get it to the point where they are giving us blocks of money if we have to take our Medicare, our Medicaid for our Hoosiers. I would rather take that money and create a Medicaid system in Indiana that actually works and is not wrought with theft and the usership of our program. I want to say that in Indiana, after a few years, I bet I could create a system where we actually could stand up to the federal government and say, we don't want to be tied to any federal dollars anymore. I am seeing an ability to create industry in Indiana with the fiber products to start creating the clothing for the 35 prisons in Indiana with thousands of people in each prison. And instead of spending millions of dollars per prison on clothing, start generating that on our own. Well, taking those welfare recipients, those disabled recipients, and like I had in my office, the young lady that was a quadriplegic with a head pointer as a typist in my office. Creating the ability for our people to go back to work and take care of themselves, if they want. Never forcing, but always offering. Standing up and empowering Indiana. I could see a point where Indiana could start creating enough money that we don't have to take any federal dollars. If we would just use our tax dollars that we are collecting in Indiana and create, like the fuel tax that we're talking about, that I don't know where Evan is. And if anybody has not met Evan McMahon, he is my campaign manager and a great guy. And if you want to write a check, he's the one you give it to. But we're talking about 18% of our fuel tax is actually going to our roads and bridges, and the other is getting called off. You know, all kinds of different things. I don't know how much I will be able to say I don't want, because it is so darn secretive. One of the reasons why, and this is another great selling point to bring new libertarians in. Do we even know how our government really works? Do we even know how the bid process works? Do we even know why people get what they get out of the government? No, because it's secretive backroom deals. In Indiana, I am hopeful that becoming governor, I'm hopeful that I become governor, and when I do, we will put every budget online, every dollar spent online, every deal done online, and start showing, taking that curtain back and showing our public what we're doing. As we do that, it will empower Indiana strong enough to take care of ourselves and say no. Take that hand and pull it back. Yes, sir.
I like the term you had, gentle revolution.
That's great.
I think that's a very catchy thing. What I'd kind of like to see happen is a lot of the decision-making authority get pulled away from the federal government, get down to the states, get pulled away from the states, bring it down to the communities, pull it away from the communities and bring it to the individuals.
Yes.
Do you think
Yes.
you can facilitate that as a government?
We have that whole plan down. And the way that I am showing it to Indiana is, do we want to stand up as Hoosiers and say, we can't run our state, the federal government needs to run us because we are not smart enough to take care of ourselves? Of course we don't. We want to run our state. And we've just went through 8 years of a governor that has said we need to centralize our government and bring it all into one spot. Well, as I watch the townships, the communities, and the neighborhoods have more and more power eliminated and centralized into our capital, that's the same thing that we would do as a state with the federal government saying we can't control ourselves, you need to control us. Well, I have already proposed we close every one of those centralized offices down and decentralize government again. Bring it back to the communities, the townships, the trustees, the neighborhoods. We know how to take care of ourselves better than others, and we have a vested interest in ourselves doing good. Why would we want to make decisions that hurt our neighborhood?
Yeah, that's the same thing we need to do in Pennsylvania.
Bring it back to your communities. We will. Yes, sir.
You're gonna be the next governor of Indiana.
Yes, sir.
But is the legislature gonna stand in your way of accomplishing these things?
We have already started writing legislation. We already have a lot of legislation ready.
Okay,
But-
eminent domain.
Eminent domain. But with the legislation, honestly, to finish this one, if I just stand up and veto every darn bill that comes through that is not constitutional, if I just stand up and start making executive order to clean our city, our state, our community up, I'm still a winner. And so is Indiana, still a winner. Eminent domain,
Eminent domain, we have a real issue here in Pennsylvania.
right?
We have an issue because everybody wants to drill, baby, drill, and that's all well and good, except for in our town, we don't even want to think about them coming near our waterway.
Right.
We've already seen. And we don't want to think about them being in our area of Bucks County. We don't want them. But the state has decided we have no choice. And we don't want it and we don't like it. We think we should have a right to say no. And if everybody else wants to have it in their county, that's great. But we don't. So how would you handle that if it came to your end of town?
In my world, I have fought for years to believe in the individual. For the government to be able to come in and say, no, for the good of the whole, we're taking your land. No, that is not. Okay, fair and level playing field. I want all of us to be on a fair and level playing field. The government cannot steal your land, just like you cannot steal your land from your neighbor. There would be no eminent domain ever under my watch.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Pardon my ignorance of your Constitution, but what is the governor's power of the pardon, and how would you plan to use it?
The power of a pardon. Looking at, in our Constitution, I'm reading right now in our Indiana State Constitution, I'm reading punishment should match the crime. Punishment does not match the crime. We're talking about the war on drugs and so many people that have lost their freedoms over hurting themselves. I would like to review a lot of these long-term drug cases that were minor infractions and start going in and not so much pardoning as making it available for men and women to actually be re-entered into society and with a 5-year, 10-year clean record, pardon. You know, create some kind of incentive to keep yourself out of trouble. I also would love to stand up every week and start picking 10 cases a week that were total railroads and start pardoning them and then dealing with the media and saying why we are pardoning them. I have always been that person that stands up. I want to be that person that still stands up. If there's no more questions, yes, sir? You know, in Indiana, we make it pretty easy to own guns, but if you want to be a gun owner of more than, now Jeremiah isn't my authority on the guns, but because honestly, in my world, I encourage my kids not to touch them. Don't touch them. These are young men and women that have already been in trouble, and you know, touching a gun means 6 years in jail, which I don't really believe in any mandatory sentences. There's never a always or nothing. There's never. But our Second Amendment right? You darn right. Even though my wife and daughter never see it, I know where my shotgun is. Being able to stand up and say, when a government can eliminate the power, take that, when a government can de-arm the population, that's a scary step. We wrote that in as the Second Amendment to protect ourselves, not from each other, from the government. They don't like hearing that. But I will always stand up and say, I wish that there was not such a big need. And maybe as we eliminate some of these, the war on drugs, the war on terror, NDA, the war in our own lands, and we start gentling down our government a little, we won't all be so worried about protecting ourselves as much. We won't. We'll still keep our guns, though. Well, thank you very much. Please check out rupertforgovernor.com. And remember, when we get voted, when I get elected in Indiana, that is going to bring a giant light to the Libertarian Party. I am hopeful. And you know, after our first debate, it's not until August though, darn it. After our first debate, I'm hoping we get so much media that the second and third are national.
That would be great. Thank you, Rupert.
Thank you, guys.
We're on to talk this evening. Stick around, get some food.
Please.
Remember, there'll be some entertainment this evening. And